He likes it. Hey guys, we're headed into 4th of July weekend, and I have the video for you. So you went to the beach this weekend to get a nice base tan, and you came home looking like a red Maine lobster. And you're asking, what do I do now? The damage has already been done. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about 5 tips in order to cure your sunburns. Let's talk about the 3 main goals after you do get a sunburn. The first is to prevent pain, the second is to heal the wound, and the third one to prevent any sort of infection. So the first cure is things that nobody wants to hear about, and it's prevention. You want to try to avoid the sun from 10 to 4, but we all know that that's not going to happen. So when you are out in these bright sunny hours, you want to make sure that you keep on sunscreen, or at least try to keep covered up. So sunscreens are only so effective, especially in the water. They come off really easily. So you want to try to keep covered up. As you can see here, John Florence has a rash guard that covers his entire torso and his head and his ears. The only thing that is exposed is his face. So in my other video, I'll discuss specific sunscreens just for surfing. So I'm gonna put sunburn cures in quotes because you can't really cure a sunburn, but you can do things to remedy them. The second sunburn cure is cool water. So after you do get a sunburn, you're gonna wanna use some cold compresses on your skin or take a cool bath or a cool shower. You wanna avoid any sort of drastic heat, hot showers, saunas, spas, things that are gonna increase the inflammation and make the burn worse. Okay, moving on to the third cure is moisturize. So after you do get a sunburn, you wanna moisturize. You're gonna wanna use some light creams. You don't wanna use anything like Vaseline. That's gonna occlude a lot of your pores. You're gonna wanna use some lighter creams. Products like Vaseline and Aquaphor can trap the heat, and they can also block your pores and increase the rate of breakouts. Aloe vera is another great cream for your skin. A lot of the over-the-counter formulations of this have a lot of dyes in them. They also sometimes have some alcohols that can further dry out the skin. Ideally, you're gonna wanna use a pure form of aloe vera. If you can get the plant, that's the best. There are some studies that have been done in some rat models that show that it decreases the inflammatory markers, and this is gonna correlate to decreasing a lot of the inflammation and pain that you're feeling. It also shows it increases the rate of wound healing. On to the third cure. It is to hydrate. You hear this repetitively, hydrate when you're in the sun. You're gonna have to hydrate thoroughly. When you get a sunburn, you're gonna lose a lot more fluid than you think. There's some losses of fluids throughout your skin that you just don't realize that you're getting. When you get sunburned, you're gonna lose more fluids through these areas that are burned, causing worse than dehydration. So if you keep hydrated, you're gonna increase the rate of wound healing in this, and you're gonna decrease a lot of your symptoms. In emergency medicine, when somebody comes into the ER with a really bad burn, we have something called the Parkland formula. It's a formula for how many fluids to give somebody when they do get this sort of burn. This doesn't really apply to sunburns typically, but it does emphasize the fact that you need to keep hydrated with these burns because you're losing a lot more fluids than you normally would be, and you have to keep hydrated. So if you're feeling lightheaded, thirsty, these are all signs of dehydration. So cure number 5 after you get a sunburn is NSAIDs. So things like ibuprofen, aspirin, these are very good to decrease the inflammation. Acetaminophen, also known as Tylenol, will decrease some of the pain, but it's not going to decrease that inflammation. So after you get a sunburn, I'd recommend something like ibuprofen. It's going to help a lot of the pain. Okay, this is the interesting part. There was a study done in Germany that showed that when they pre-treated some people with aspirin before they went out into the sun, they tended to get less severe sunburns than people who didn't take aspirin. So I'm not advocating to take aspirin every time you go out into the sun because there are side effects of aspirin, but it's an interesting thing. I was also looking on Amazon, and there's a lot of formulations of medications that'll prevent a sunburn, but on all of these, there's a lot of labels that say you still need to use sunscreen. So to be clear, I'm not saying to go out into the sun just taking an aspirin or some of these Amazon over-the-counter products that'll prevent sunburns. To reiterate, there's several things not to do. The first thing is to avoid anything hot. You don't want to be going into a hot shower, a sauna, a spa. These things are going to increase the inflammation and make the sunburn a lot worse than it could be. The second thing not to use is any sort of pain medications like benzocaine. There's a lot of over-the-counter sprays that'll say it numbs up your sunburn.
Old wives' tales.
You're on a surf trip out in the middle of nowhere, you have no access to a pharmacy, and you decided not to bring any aloe vera or anything like that. There's some other remedies that you can use that I've found on the internet that people have been using for a while when they don't have aloe vera. Number 1, apple cider vinegar. So what you're supposed to do is keep this cool, put it on some cold compresses, and put it onto the area that's sunburned.
Numero dos.
If you're my age, do you remember when our parents got us together for chickenpox parties? Well, I do. So an old wives' tale or home remedy for when you got chickenpox when I was a kid was to take some pantyhose and take some unflavored oatmeal, put it in there, and then put it in the bath. And you'd make a nice bath, and it would prevent some of the itching that went along with it. So apparently this works for sunburns as well. So this is another way you can kind of alleviate some of these symptoms.
Number 3.
So number 3 is full-fat Greek yogurt. Apparently there's some hydrating effects to it, and you're supposed to just take it where you have a sunburn and kind of, probably lighter than this, put it over, and you just kind of lather it on. So this is if you really don't have any aloe vera, anything else, and you're just really trying to get into the kitchen and find out what you got.